What's going on, you guys? It's your man, the Grass Ninja. Welcome to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be doing Prescience Explained. So I wanted to give it a little bit of time, really make sure I understood this thoroughly, did a little bit of research. So when it comes to this video, I want to do a few things here. For one, I want to just kind of clear up the misconception around the name of the jutsu. It is Prescience, not Prescience, and it's not the 10 directions. And then we're also going to just kind of explain the general applications and how the ability works. We're going to go over all of the known users of the technique. We're going to talk about the Battle of Prophecies, as well as the limitations of the jutsu, and briefly touch on the fact that there may or may not be a Boruto multiverse. So let's jump right into this. We're going to start off with the misconception of the 10 directions. Okay, so when Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 13 first dropped, we had the official release, and then we had the spoilers. So the entire chapter was leaked out online, and we had fan translations. And the 10 directions was the fan translation of Kashin Koji's ability to see into the future. Now, while that name is fitting, it sounds cool, we have the 10 paths now, it doesn't quite fit the actual scope and definition of Kashin Koji's ability. So where this all comes from, the probable reason why they chose to use this terminology, the 10 directions, refers to the 10 directions of Buddhist philosophy, which deals with the 8 cardinal directions of the compass, as well as up and down. So the concept of the 10 directions is often mentioned in conjunction with past, present, and future iterations of all Buddha throughout space and time. Now, obviously, Kashin Koji's ability is only limited to future sight. It does not cover past and present, because that's what Ada's Senrigan lets her do through her clairvoyance ability. So, the 10 direction more closely lines up with the actual definition and ability of omniscience. Now, omniscience is the power or ability to know everything, to have knowledge of everything past, present, and future, just like how the 10 directions refers to all of the Buddha throughout space and time, whether that's past, present, and future. So while the 10 directions or the 10 paths was the name given to Kashin Koji's new ability, this actual fan translation name doesn't accurately portray the function and scope of power that comes with the Shinjutsu Prescience, which is the official name or translation of the divine technique. Prescience, not prescience. Now, if we're going to talk about prescience and how that actually plays into account, we have to also talk about its definition. So prescience is the ability to have knowledge of something before it actually happens. So this is synonymous with prediction, foresight, prognostication, the ability to know the future. So prescience more accurately lines up with the idea of prophecy, which is the ability to predict future events, also synonymous with prognostication and a foretelling of the future or foresight. While Kashin Koji explains that prescience grants him the ability to see all possible roads the future can take, the ability itself only lets him see events that could potentially occur in the future, meaning the future is a fluid construct. It is ever changing, and depending on what actions or decisions are taken in the present can determine which road or path we go down in the future. This way, no one particular future is ever guaranteed. However, present events, as they continue to unfold, increase the likelihood of any one particular future coming to pass. So this would explain why we have numerous different prophecies coming into play within the story of Naruto and Boruto. So right now, we actually have numerous prophecies within Naruto and Boruto that have been given out or that have been laid out for us throughout the entirety of the story. And if we were to go in timeline order, which is what we're going to do, we could actually look into a few of these prophecies. So, Gamamaru and his prophecy. So if you didn't know, Gamamaru is the older Toad Sage of Mount Myoboku. He's actually made 2 separate prophecies within the Naruto series. The first being the prophecy he told to Hagoromo that one day in the distant future there would be a young man who was able to bring all of the tailed beasts together in cooperation with one another, and that he would be responsible for saving the world from a future calamity. Of course, this eventually did come to pass in the form of Naruto acquiring all of the chakra from each tailed beast in the war arc and using their power to defeat a resurrected Kaguya Otsutsuki. The second instance of Gamamaru prophesizing future events actually more solidifies the actual definition and function of prescience in Boruto. So the second instance of Gamamaru prophesizing future events would be when he told Jiraiya that he would one day train a student, and that pupil of Jiraiya will bring a major change to the world, and depending on the actions of Jiraiya, the child of prophecy would either save the world or destroy it. Now, this instance is rather interesting because Gamamaru, all the way back in Naruto Shippuden and the Naruto manga, saw the future could have gone in one of two ways depending on the actions Jiraiya took with his students. Just like how now Kashin Koji explains to us that prescience can show him multiple possible routes the future can take. And then we have Toneri's prophecy. So Toneri, at the very beginning of the Boruto anime, I believe it's episode 8, also shared his prophecy of Boruto's fate and how he will use the power of the Jogan in order to save the world from a future calamity, calling Boruto's eye the Star of Hope, which will save humanity from the wrath of the gods sometime in the future. Now we have Toneri with his prophecy. We also have Momoshiki, who also made prophecies of his own. In the moments where Momoshiki defeated, or when Momoshiki was defeated and bestowed the Karma Seal onto Boruto, we also heard the famous line that those blue eyes will eventually take everything from you. As Momoshiki stated, he can easily look into the fate of others, and he can tell Boruto's destiny is filled with despair. Obviously, that line referred to Ada's Senringan and her ability to use omnipotence to swap the history of Boruto and Kawaki in the minds of everyone in the world, leading him to willingly give up his future, allowing Momoshiki to take over. Now, this one's interesting because while some of this prophecy did come to pass in the form of Boruto losing everything, Momoshiki quite literally started bugging out because of Sasuke's decision to join Boruto, despite the effects of omnipotence, leading to the downfall of Momoshiki's end goal, which was to take over Boruto's body. And this is when we look into the final prophecy that's been made as of right now, Kashin Koji's prophecy. Now, Kashin Koji's prophecy is the eventual end of the world at the hands of the Shinju, mainly the increasingly likely scenario where Boruto is killed by Jura and Kawaki is fed to the Ten Tails, leading to all life on the planet being absorbed into the God Tree. Of course, Kashin Koji and Boruto are using prescience in order to try and avoid this possible outcome, but as it stands right now, we have yet to see any real change in the overall likelihood of this future being snuffed out, which is where we need to jump into the actual explanation of how prescience works. So, when it comes down to how prescience functions within the Boruto series, according to Kashin Koji's description in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 13, prescience grants the user the ability to see all possible futures in the form of visions or scenes that are displayed on scrolls that flash by the user, showing them all the possible roads the future can take. Once a certain amount of time in the present has passed, right? Once certain events in the present have passed, depending on what choices are made by the individuals in the present, certain futures either come to pass or get snuffed out. Like how Momoshiki saw a future where he could take over Boruto's body, things changed in the present, leading to that possibility being snuffed out. Or how Kashin Koji saw Naruto being killed by Ishiki, and that didn't end up happening. That timeline was snuffed out. Or even Kawaki killing Boruto and Sarada. That didn't happen, so that timeline was snuffed out. Or that possible future was snuffed out. When it comes to the practical uses of prescience, Kashin Koji explains that using prescience gives you the added advantage of prep time, thanks to having intel on future adversaries, like how defeating a Shinju converts them back into a Thorn Soul, and it allows you to basically save those trapped in the trees. It also has the added benefits when it comes to training, since Kashin Koji is able to teach Boruto techniques that future versions of himself are able to use, like the Flying Raijin and the Rasengan Uzuhiko. And this is also backed up by statements Momoshiki made in Boruto Naruto Next Generations, specifically chapter 75 and 76. So it's here where we saw for the first time Momoshiki and Boruto's minds overlapped, and they were actually able to hear and see each other's thoughts. In this moment, Boruto was able to see the future that Momoshiki was aiming for, and Momoshiki says, even if it was only in fragments, it appears that you were able to see the same tableau as I did. Now, tableau is a funny word. A tableau refers to a group of models, images, or pictures, motionless figures that represent a scene from a story or history. And as we just went over with Prescience, Prescience showed Kashin Koji various scenes from the future in the form of visions or images that were played out on scrolls. So the visual representation of Prescience almost identically matches with the definition of tableau, which is what Momoshiki called it when he was looking into the future. So based on this, it's pretty safe to assume that Momoshiki also has the same Shinjutsu as Shibai and Kashin Koji, considering his definition and all of the different times Momoshiki decided to actually step up and take control of Boruto. So just like Kashin Koji, right? Momoshiki saw the possibility that Boruto and Kawaki's lives would eventually get swapped, just like Kashin Koji did, and even played a role in making sure it would happen. So remember back when Kawaki sealed Naruto away, Boruto and Kawaki had a fight on the rooftop or the Hokage monument. Kawaki tried to kill Boruto, only to be pinned down by the forces of Konoha. So Mitsuki, Shikamaru, and Sasuke put Kawaki in a corner, and he was basically done. But who was it that saved Kawaki? Momoshiki. And it was weird too, because Boruto wasn't low on chakra, or severely injured, or unconscious, yet Momoshiki stepped in, basically taking control of Boruto by force, freed Kawaki, which allowed him to run away, eventually needing the help of Ada, which led to omnipotence, which led to the desired future Momoshiki was aiming for, where Boruto would lose everything. Now, this ability, Prescience, the ability to see all possible roads the future can take, is obviously super broken, especially when you have the added benefit of prep time and you know when it's necessary to step in to create your desired future. So what are the limitations? Now, when it comes to the limitations of Prescience and Future Sight abilities in the Boruto story, you virtually have none, other than the fact that the future is extremely difficult to control. While Boruto and Kashin Koji work together to reach a future where the Divine Tree plan doesn't come to pass, there still remains the overarching story beat of Boruto saving Kawaki and restoring the Uzumaki family, right? Which is based off that flash forward scene in chapter 1. Boruto still has to fight against Kawaki in a destroyed Hidden Leaf village, saying, was this really the only possible outcome? Because Boruto set a parameter for himself. We can take down the Ten Tails, we can take down Code, we can save the future, but I will never accept a plan where we have to kill Kawaki. So maybe, after all of this, in that flash forward scene, Boruto's just done, and he's no longer trying to talk no jutsu this man. He is going to whoop ass and possibly kill Kawaki, saying, was this really the only possible outcome? We also have Toneri and Momoshiki's conflicting prophecies of Boruto's fates. So, where we have two Otsutsukis meddling with Boruto's journey in order to create the desired future for themselves, the future is ever changing, and the possibility for both of their prophecies to come true becomes less and less likely, right? Momoshiki wants to take over Boruto. Toneri sees Boruto as the savior of the future, saving the world and humanity from the wrath of the gods. It's basically a battle of prophecies. And this is the problem when we have multiple people looking into the future, trying to manipulate the present so that they can walk down the desired path they want for the future. And even Gamamaru back in Naruto saw the future could have gone in one of two ways when it came down to the students of Jiraiya, where depending on his actions, the Child of Prophecy would either bring the world into an era of peace or bring it to its end. So even back then, present events, the will of people, the knowledge people have of the future can play a role in where the future ends up. So even if you have a prophecy that the future will end up one way, there still remains the possibility it could change. So while one limitation of the future sight Shinjutsu is the battle of prophecies, another limitation comes into play when you're trying to manipulate your own fate or your own future. Now, unless otherwise stated, at this point in time, it seems highly likely that Momoshiki and Kashin Koji use the same prescience Shinjutsu in order to look into the future. And based on what Momoshiki was saying, that he couldn't see the results of his own fate, he couldn't look into his own future, but he was able to see Boruto's clearly, it could be taken to mean that users of prescience are unable to see visions of themselves in the future and only the fate of others, which is why Momoshiki ended up losing to Naruto, Sasuke, and Boruto. And this would actually act as a good balancing mechanic placed into the story, because otherwise we would just be asking the questions like, well, how did X, Y, and Z happen to so-and-so if they're able to see into the future? Like, how did Momoshiki lose to Boruto and Naruto and Sasuke if he saw the future? He might not be able to see into his own fate. We might not see Kashin Koji be able to look into his own fate, which is how Matsuri and Mamushi might hunt him down and he not see it coming. Now, is there a multiverse? This is the big question that's also being floated around. It's up for debate. While the idea of multiple variations of the future leads you to think of multiple timelines and universes, the actual reality where a Boruto multiverse exists is still up for debate. At this point in time, I would side with the argument that these other timelines are indeed real, quote unquote, considering Kashin Koji was able to teach Boruto techniques that future variations of Boruto was able to use, like Flying Raijin and Mitsuhiko. However, whether or not these parallel realities or timelines actually coexist alongside the main Boruto timeline is a different story altogether, because we were told those futures get snuffed out as they walk a different course in the present. So fate, destiny, prophecies, and the future all depend on the present choices of the individuals in the story. And as Juro points out, it would appear that some sort of divine intervention is at play when it comes to Boruto's fate in particular, meaning that it is possible that there is only one true timeline of events, but until we're introduced to an ability that actually allows someone to traverse these parallel realities, we should probably follow the assumption that there is only one universe or timeline until otherwise stated. So when it comes down to it, prescience allows you to see into the future, the ability to know the future. This is why we have multiple characters in the series with multiple different prophecies. So when it comes down to the users of prescience, obviously Kashin Koji's up there. If you were to ask me, I'd say Momoshiki is using the same Shinjutsu based off his terminology in chapter 75 and 76. Obviously, Kashin Koji got the ability from Shibai, so Shibai has it. Toneri's also able to look into the future and come up with his own prophecies, so maybe Toneri Otsutsuki can use prescience. And then we have, way back in Naruto, Gamamaru from Mount Nyoboku also forming prophecies, probably not using a Shinjutsu, but since he's super old and has a mastery of Senjutsu, whenever he falls asleep, he might peer into the future. It's probably some Senjutsu variation, since all ninjutsu and Senjutsu are just derivatives and lesser versions of Shinjutsu. But let me know what you guys are thinking. Do you want to keep calling it 10 Directions, or should we just stick with the official name? How do you think the ability actually works? Did I cover it well? Are all these other users of the techniques confirmed in your mind? What about the Battle of Prophecies? We have numerous characters out here fighting to make the future that they want from their perspective. Then the limitations of the jutsu. Do you think what Momoshiki is able to do is the same rules that apply to Kashin Koji? And is there a Boruto multiverse? Super curious to hear what you guys are saying in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. I've been your man's the Grass Ninja. Have a nice day. Peace.